That's how I knew I was meant for the job, because it weren't even about money. I want to help you get to where I feel like you can get to. We pressed the button to launch. We didn't have one member. Do I spend every single penny I've got on this, or do I keep it?
Today, crack the world's problems, then we're on our way.
Welcome to Football for Breakfast, brought to you by OSS Security. I'm Jim Johnson, and our guest today is living proof that a sporting injury can be the best thing that ever happens to you. He has co-founded one of the most exciting startups in the fitness industry, transforming lives in over 40 countries, and his name is Callum Webb. Over breakfast, we discuss what football, fitness, and community all have in common. Put the kettle on. You're amongst good companions. Callum Webb.
Nice to meet you.
Pleased to meet you, mate. Sit yourself down. See, you've got the old breakfast order, the same as mine. I'm already halfway through mine. Callum, you put protein and banana or poached eggs with anything. You're not getting protein and banana in the greasy spoon, right? I'm just reading in the 10th of May 1980 edition of Roy the Rovers, which was my 9th birthday. In charge at Anfield. Now, in the Roy Race talking in this issue, I think Roy Race invented Sky TV, right? And I'm going to see if you know why he invented Sky TV, right? So it says, from in charge at Anfield, from Lancaster, Mark Laverty writes in to ask me, that's Roy, if I can tell him who Liverpool's managers have been since 1900. Roy says, I'm sorry, Mark, I only have records since the last war. That feels very much like, I'm sorry, Mark, there was no football before Sky invented the Premier League in 1992, right? Just out of interest, can you name the Liverpool managers from since the last war?
No.
No, well, he says it's George Kay, Don Welsh, Phil Taylor, and then it gets good. Bill Shankly, and currently in charge, of course, Bob Paisley. Wow. Anyway, the 10th of May, 1980. That was my 9th birthday. Arsenal got beaten by Valencia in the European Cup Winners' Cup final. I cried like a baby. For the last time, I cried like a baby over Arsenal Football Club. Anyway, what's your earliest memory of football?
Earliest memory of football would probably be on the Cop.
Yeah.
The old Cop.
Standing
Yeah.
room only. You butter baby, you don't look, I can't believe it.
So I always remember a picture that my grandad must have took when
Right.
I was about 4 or 5, and it was like a standing Cop, but they had like the bars.
Yeah. Like the terracing.
And,
The
I was
stanchions.
just sitting on one of them.
Right.
I couldn't tell you what the game was, but I always remember that's kind of the first thing that comes to my mind when I think about like Liverpool and going the match. It must have been my first game.
And do you remember the sway and all that sort of stuff?
Definitely, yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Always.
You didn't get anything in your pocket like that, no. But you do remember that.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Is that a dying memory? Is that something that will, over time, just seep out of football completely? I mean, we're talking in an era where they are talking about safe standing returning, but it won't be that experience, will it? The sway of the crowd and all of that thing.
No, I think everything just evolves, doesn't it? You know, football itself. I still go to the game now, but I'm sitting like the main stand. I don't really get to sit in the Cop as much. But you know, as sad as it is, the atmosphere has changed. It isn't what it used to be. It's electric on Champions League nights and stuff. But even like league games when I was a kid, like they felt like the biggest game ever, being in the Cop and seeing the atmosphere. You know, your Fulham's at home, whatever it was. It always. I don't know if that was because I was a kid and I was just caught up in like the amazement of it.
Yeah. The spectacle.
The spectacle, yeah.
You mentioned your granddad a little bit there. Is that experience somehow linked to your granddad's memory, or does it go beyond that?
Do you know what? My granddad's just been like a die-hard Liverpool fan since he was a boy.
Do you know what period that goes back to?
He must be, how old my granddad now? He must be 70 odd, and he was going since he was like 6 or 7. So, you know, you'll know there by whoever the manager was before.
Well, let's have a lolook. Yeah. So, if he was here now, would it be
70 years ago?
Yeah, 70 years ago. What was that guy's name? Because there's names there I don't realise. So, do we think it's Phil? He's probably a Phil Taylor era. Liverpool fan?
I'll have to ask him. Me and my younger brother and my granddad, it was our thing with my granddad was just to go to the match.
So you went to the match with your granddad?
Yeah.
So it skipped a generation in one sense?
Yeah, so my dad loves his footy, but he was never mad on Liverpool. My dad was more like, used to be a manager in Sunday League footy and stuff, so he was more like of the amateur side of things.
Right.
He'd go, rather than go and watch Liverpool at 3 o'clock on a Saturday, he'd go and play with his mates on a Saturday, or managers' mates, whatever it was. So that was like my brothers and my granddad's
Interesting
thing to do, yeah.
So your dad's relationship with football is very, very different and shaped a completely different way.
Yeah, as I say, from a young age, like I literally just lived and breathed Liverpool.
Right.
Your sticker books, your match of the days. And me and my younger brother, my granddad used to have a massive he still has now, he's got a massive back garden and he built us a goal in there. So like our weekends were just like, can we go to my nan and granddad? So, you'd do all remember like the Pink Echo? You scored all the goals and you'd stay up and watch match of the day. Me, my brother and my granddad, that was just our little thing. We were just all footy mad for Liverpool.
Funny that, I think about my own grandparents and none of them are interested in football. None of them, and because my dad died when I was very young, I would often try and get some kind of touchstone, because I was football mad like you when I was a kid, and I never get anything back from them. They didn't go to the games. To be fair to them, they liked other things that I've inherited as passions, like film and movies and things like that, but not that. I think. Yeah, it's really interesting, but also particularly interesting. It's kind of got that generational skip, but not because your dad wasn't into football, but because your dad was into a different type of football, playing the game and all that sort of stuff. But obviously, it's Liverpool.
Yeah.
What's that like being a Liverpool fan, growing up in Merseyside, the golden eras? Left, right, and centre. Never a million miles away from another piece of silverware.
Yeah, well, obviously my upbringing was more. There wasn't much silverware because it was like Spice Boys kind of time.
Yeah, still won trophies though, Cal.
Yeah,
still won trophies.
But obviously when I'd got a little bit older, peak me going the game and peak me loving football was the treble season. Your Owen Fowler, Heskey, Gerrard just coming through. And that's kind of like where you said about my first memories. That season in particular, that's like my core memory because we were going to the Millennium Stadium for the first time, the first cup final, and then obviously from there, that's when we kind of went on to. That was the real era of your silverware and getting used to winning week in week out. Whereas before then it was a bit. We had a great team, but they weren't. They never really won much, did they?
Well, you say that right, but 1990. Was the last title.
That's when I was born.
Right.
2 months later.
So you were born in 1990, right? And so you had to wait till 2020, right? So you had to work the 30-year wait, right? So you agonised over the 30-year wait. But I think as football fans, we live in hope rather than expectation. And although, yes, that was a long time, and for a Liverpool fan, it was pretty daunting to be in the shadow of teams like United and then Chelsea and then City, and ultimately. But you still won trophies. You still, 1992, you won the FA Cup, you won numerous League Cups. Still been to a few European Cup finals in that period. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is that not the point?
That's better for me. Obviously, I seen us win the league in 2020 and last year, but for me, obviously, winning league, it's a bit of a build up to we're on course to win it. We're 5 games away, we're 4 games away. For me, you just can't beat the off the cuff cup final where it's that jeopardy for 90 minutes. I feel like all my best moments and memories are from cup finals rather than league titles.
So let's park the big ones for a moment, but let's talk about some of those FA Cup finals. So Gerrard final, were you there?
No. So what happened with that one? Again, me, my granddad and my brother were meant to be going, but my granddad's 2 brothers, they're the tickets that me and my brother always used to use for the cup games and whatever, because they didn't used to go to cup games, but they there was rumours that it was going to be the last cup final in the Millennium Stadium, and my granddad's two brothers has never been, so they thought we'll never get to see it, so we'll go. And obviously the Gerrard final is one of the most iconic ones, and it turned out it wasn't the last one in the Millennium Stadium as well, so we gave them tickets up. And
you talked about your dad, his relationship with playing on a Saturday. Did you ever watch him play?
Yeah, it was a good story actually. So he was like a Saturday and Sunday league manager for years.
Yeah.
And about, must have been about 10 years ago.
Okay.
We played a match for his team, and it had me playing centre half.
Yeah.
Me dad playing centre mid.
Wow.
And me brother playing up front. So like the three of us on the same pitch together in amateur football. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Right. What level we talking?
That was just that's like, you know, your Saturday league kind
of
business hours.
Which was the team?
What was it called? The Angus, they were called. It was a pub team.
Okay.
Yeah.
But a Saturday afternoon pub team.
Yes.
And were you a regular fixture then, or were you called in?
No, I was a regular then. Yeah.
And your dad was the manager as well.
Yeah. So I was playing with my mates for the Saturday team who were in the same league as my dad's team.
Right.
And obviously we were a well better team.
Yeah.
But what had happened? My dad stopped managing them for 6 months.
Right.
So a new manager was had took over at the time, and then my dad ended up coming back and was like, "Look, son, come back and play for me and come and play for our team." And you know, we're struggling and whatever. So I ended up signing for them. My brother did. I took a few of my mates with me from the other team, and it was great.
Your grassroots team, though, you talk about Country Park and the Mayfair. What's that?
So Country Park was like my first proper football team where. That sort of set up for like Trent played for Country Park, like a bit younger. So we were like.
Is that in the Walton and Kirkdale or? Yeah.
So Country Park were basically like the team of anyone who played for Liverpool, all your Northwest clubs.
All came through there.
Oh yeah. Came through there, or if they were released from any of them.
That's where they trickled down to.
Yeah. So like we'd win everything. Just a really, really good team. And the story behind how I ended up playing for them. My mum and dad were taking me two brothers to Benidorm for like just like a family holiday, and as I say, I was that mad on football. Me junior school had a football tournament at Liverpool Academy.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I want to play in this tournament for the school. I'll stay in my nan and granddad's. You go on holiday, which again, not many kids would do. Would sacrifice going on holiday to have a game, you know, a football tournament for a couple of hours.
I know a couple of boys that would do that.
Fair.
I think I probably would have done that.
And ended up playing in that tournament, and it turned out one of the fellas was a Liverpool scout at the time, and he was the manager of Country Park.
Right.
And he'd watched the tournament at the academy and come over to me and was like, would you be interested in signing for my team? Obviously I'd played well at the tournament, and he asked me to go down, and that was my team then, from 11 to like 17, 18.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what made you stop?
Just, I'd probably say, so that team, they were like my football mates. But
right.
In school, I played for the school football team as well, and a lot of the school football team, they played for another Sunday team, who were probably the second best to Country Park.
Yeah.
But it was like 8 of me
good
mates were all playing for that team. So I was like, and you know what it's like when you're in school and you're around them every single day. I was only around the other lads at Country Park once a week. Yeah. And to be honest, we were just winning everything. I was playing defence, so like some games you're going in, you're winning 10-0, 12-0.
Barely touching the ball.
You know, it was like I'm scoring 2 from centre half or back and whatever. And things just got to the point where I was like, look, I'd rather go and play with my mates and, you know, it'd be a bit more competitive.
Well, I've just heard the first half whistle go off in my head. So in the second half, we will come back and we will talk a little bit about Callum Webb, the person, and a bit more about your story.
Cool.
This show exists because people believed in what it could be before it was anything. J.B. Priestley wrote about football turning strangers into companions, a community built in 90 minutes. And that's the whole idea behind what we're doing here. And OSS Security got that straight away. Not just the podcast, but the point of it, the belonging, the conversations, the thing that football does to people when it's at its best. They came on board as believers in the show, in the vision, in what this community can become. They say, got you covered. And that's exactly how it feels. For the show, and for everyone who's part of it. So, whatever you need, whether that's for your business or for your home, simply knowing someone's looking out for you, well, they've got you covered. We're proud to have them with us on this journey. And you can find a link to them in the show notes to find out more. Okay, so we're into the second half, Callum, and we like to talk about you and your story. Tell us a bit about, how you got here.
So I grew up on a council estate, council farm, or Stockbridge Village, as people like to call it. As I say, just mad into me football and loved school. I loved playing football in school, loved all the sporty side of things, didn't really enjoy the academic side of things. And once I'd left, I ended up working for my dad. My dad's got his own bricklaying firm. So
were you on the tools?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was a labourer at first, getting on the tools, doing a bit of bricklaying. But
so you mixed were you like a 2-on-1, one for two?
Yeah. So I'd done that for 6 years or something like that. But obviously, late teens, early 20s, it was all just about like going to work, getting paid, going out with your mates on the weekend, and it was just that cycle. And then I got to about 25, and I was like, this is just not for me now. And I was looking around the building site, and look, I have the utmost respect for anyone on a building site, all top fellas. But I was looking interesting, and like, do I want to be here in 10 years? Is this the life I'm signing myself up for? And I just knew I was meant for something
different.
Big. Yeah. I was always like the captain of my football teams. I was always like the leader. I knew how to get the best out of other people, and I always thought, you know what, there's got to be something that I can use that for. And obviously working on site for that long, I'd saved up like, obviously it's not a lot, but I'd saved up like £3,000. Obviously where I'd spend all my money on going out on nights out and holidays and stuff, so I had £3,000 in my top drawer, saved for from years. And I remember going online one night, sitting up at like 11 o'clock, and I was like, do you know what, I'm going to check out personal training. It weren't a big thing. Personal training's huge now. Fitness, it wasn't like 10 years ago. There wasn't many in the city, and I thought, you know what, it ties in with what I feel like my skill set is about getting the best out of other people and being a leader. And I googled the course, and it was like £2,999, and I'm thinking, I've got £3,000 sitting in my top drawer there. Do I spend every single penny I've got on this, or do I keep it and go on holiday with my partner at the time, or my mates and whatever? And just took the leap. Signed up for a course.
What year would this be?
This was about 2017.
Right, okay.
About 2017, 2018.
So it's a pretty crowded market even by then, right?
Yeah, no, don't get me wrong, it wasn't as saturated as it is today.
Okay.
But it was quite popular, more like your classes and stuff like that. Whereas this was like a one-to-one.
Did you have a vision for the sort of PT you might wanted to have been? Because most people can dip their toe into either accessing a PT now, and I, even myself, have had PTs in the past, and one of the things I always find is that the ones that are really good at what they do are the ones that are really engaged with their clients. They're not on their phone scrolling while you're doing burpees or whatever.
I think a lot of people have got the perception of personal trainers though, where they eat chicken and rice every single day, they don't have sauce, they don't drink, they live and breathe the gym every single day. And that's not me. I'm more of like a lifestyle approach, enjoy everything in moderation,
And was that your philosophy back then, or did you grow that?
No, that was my philosophy from the off, and I think that's served me quite well. My partner's in the industry now. Obviously, we've got a business together, and she was exactly the same. Obviously, I hadn't met her at the time, but we were kind of both building businesses. She was like, the female audience, building up her client base. I had obviously my audience, but my audience was actually I niched very early on, which was a big risk. I was like, I trained loads of the lads, loads of my mates, done some classes, and I just weren't getting that satisfaction because they'd still go out every single weekend on having a drink. They weren't really bothered about the food, and I was like, I needed to see people progressing and seeing the results that obviously I'm trying to help them with, and I was seeing that in the females I was training, because obviously they're a lot more body conscious. They're a lot more kind of like, if they say something, they'll focus. If they tell themselves they're going to do something, I was finding that a lot of the girls were like zoning in and getting it done. So I was like, I just made the decision of like, I'm going to coach female only clients.
Right.
And again, that was something quite new at the time, where it was like, you don't see many males just coaching females only. Like loads, my client base was like loads of mums and a few.
When did you make that? When did you make that leap?
That was literally about 3 months into.
Oh really?
Into PT, and because I was just getting frustrated. Whereas like I was all in on my clients, and I'd like do anything for every single one of them. And especially with the lads, I weren't getting that back because, as I say, they were like partying every week and, you know, they'd just come in and they were still paying me. I was still earning good money from them. And I was like, that's how I knew I was meant for the job, because it weren't even about money. It was more about, I want to help you get to where I feel like you can get to and I know what you're capable of. And I was getting that from the female side. It's always been about the people, you know, making, especially in fitness as well. A lot of people don't like exercising. You know, it's a chore for a lot of people. So I think and that you know that's not, you're not one of few. It's very, very common. So my approach was always, you know, how can I make this as enjoyable as possible so that people want to come back, so that people really look forward to it. And I think it's about then understanding the client, building that relationship with the client. You know, every single person's different, you know, and that's where a lot of people in my industry go wrong. They think what works for them will work for all their clients, you know. What works for one client will work for another client. And
see, I ran a marathon when I was 40, and that kind of classic sort of bloody minded, I'm 40, I'm going to run that marathon because it's there. And I set myself a 6-month target and I ran it. And in the process of running that marathon, I did a half marathon, and at 40, I ran a really good half marathon. I'm not built for running. Do you know what I mean? You know, I've got flat feet, I've got overpronating ankles, I've got arthritis in both my knees as a result of playing too much football. But I wanted that personal achievement. And when I did the half, I ran the half in 2 hours, 3 minutes, which, I mean, I've just got a nephew who's run a half marathon. He's as fit as a butcher's dog, and he ran it in about the same amount of time, and he's like 20, he's just turned 21. So I win, right? I wanted to run a sub 4 hour marathon, and I ran it in 4 hours 5, and it completely destroyed my appetite for it. I never wanted to run again like that. What would you say to someone like me who'd done something fairly extraordinary? Because not many people, okay, there's Iron Men out there and there's all of that, but for someone who's done something like that and has all the kind of physical ailments that go with being my age, how do you tell them to, what do you do to tell them to get back on the horse?
Well, where you probably did go wrong there is you kind of went all in on that goal, and it was so reward focused of like,
right,
you know, basically you've pinned all your hopes, haven't you? And you've kind of put all your eggs in one basket of like, if you'd have finished 5 minutes before, it's not a massive thing, is it really? No. 5 minutes, but then you've kind of gone from like, if you'd have finished 5 minutes before, you'd have probably been thinking, right, I'm going to do another one, I'm going to book another one. And now you've gone the complete opposite way.
Yeah.
It's probably just a mindset shift, isn't it? It's like, do it for the love of, you know, being a fitter parent, being a fitter dad, you know, having more energy for your kids, having more energy for dealing with, you know, having a better mental approach to certain situations in your life and stuff like that. Because I think having a better understanding of the impact training can have on not just kind of a medal at the end of a run or something. It's everything else that goes in with it. You know, that's kind of my approach to any client now, or that's been my own approach now to fitness, is like, I don't train to look good. You know, I train to be a better partner, I train to be a better father, I train to be able to handle certain situations in life and business. You know, I don't have to go into too much detail, my backstory, the health issues that I had when I was younger and stuff like that. And, you know, being resilient, exercise is a massive, massive part of that for me. And I think it's just having that lifestyle approach rather than putting all your hope on just one certain outcome.
But resilience is something I think that, you know, I think you can grow resilience, but I think it's you're fortunate if you have it in abundance, and it sounds like you have it in abundance, and it enabled you to build these businesses like the paddle business that you're building, you know, currently. How much of it is the inspiration versus perspiration thing, you know, to find the niche in the market? Because I think you've described a bit like 3 months in, you recognised that you were going to be a female-only trainer, and now you're doing things which are absolutely at the forefront of personal fitness. You know, and I use paddles as an example of that. I've got terrible hand-eye coordination. I reckon I would love it, but I know I just, you know, couldn't play squash. You know, I was a terrible batsman. You know, I'm rubbish at golf. Right? How do you foresee what's round the mountain?
I don't know. Do you know what? Not that I can put me. Everything's obviously a gamble, isn't it? And you can
Right.
you're going off certain instincts and stuff like that. But I don't know. Even if I tie it back to like my fitness business, I went into like online coaching before COVID, for example.
Right.
And online coaching wasn't even a thing. Very, very select people were doing it. But I'd hit capacity on the floor, on the gym floor, and I was like booked up. All my classes were booked up. I was booked up for one-to-one PT, and you know, rather than taking my foot off the gas and thinking, you know, I've made it, you know, I'm earning all this money, I'm, you know, I've got this many people coming to me. I was like, right, okay, what's next? What is the next step? And again, it weren't money driven.
No.
It was more like, how can I help more people?
Right.
I need to be able to help more people.
And
You
you've
know,
only got one set of hands, right?
and you've only got so many hours in a day. There's only so much room you can fit X amount of people into to take a class and stuff. And I don't know. I think I've always just had that mindset.
So how did you scale?
I went online. So cut a long story short, I'd become an online coach. I started advertising myself, saying I can do one-to-one online. And a couple of months later, COVID hit. And then at this time, me and my partner, she'd been building up her business, I was building up my business. And what we decided to do was, look, no one can go to a gym, no one's got access to equipment and stuff. We'll start putting classes on, we'll stream them live through Instagram, and anyone can join it, you know, the masses can join it, you know, whether it's 10 people, whether it's 1,000 people. And we were putting these classes on, you know, it was all free. People could donate to the NHS. We set like a Just Giving page up or whatever it was called at the time, and we ended up raising 15 grand. We were getting, I'd probably say even as far as like a couple of thousand people were showing up to do the classes live, streaming them. And then again, straight away we were like, there's something in this.
Right.
I'd built up a 6-figure coaching business. My partner built up a 6-figure coaching business, and we both walked away from it. After COVID, we come up with the concept of power. We'll build a fitness app. We'll scale it so that, you know, we've got access to, whether it's 10 people or 10,000 people, it's the same amount of work, because obviously we're doing online. It's not the same amount of work, I'm exaggerating it. It is a lot more work, but it's just giving thousands of people more access to me and my partner.
Right.
And we saw that demand was there because of how many people were showing up online during COVID. Now, the easy thing to do would have been, again, go back to our coaching businesses, you know.
Fall back into the safe space.
Yeah, that's it, the safe space. And that's just not me as a person. It never have been. And
Your comfort zone.
definitely. And to walk away from that and literally launch it, we pressed the button to launch. We didn't have one member. Obviously, it was all just a gamble.
Yeah.
And once we pressed that button and we went live, and like the rest history from there,
So before you came in, we asked you to bring something with you, an object that connects you to a football memory.
Okay.
It's there. Tell me what it is.
It is my Istanbul ticket from the Champions League final in 2005.
One day, I'm going to have a Liverpool fan who comes in who doesn't talk about Istanbul in 2005. I'm not saying that you're living on past glories, because you've had recent glories, but it was pretty extraordinary.
Were they all there though?
Well, this is a very good question. My brother-in-law was there, right? Remembers nothing about it, right? I remember more about that evening than he does. But it's interesting because if I can just pick it up, do you mind if I pick it up?
Go for it.
The ticket stub. We talked about the programme being a dying thing. The ticket stub is also a dying thing.
Yeah.
Artifacts, and I think this is one of the reasons why we're so keen on people bringing in artifacts, because I think the tangible memory of things, is so important to part of the culture and the ethos of our conversations on Football for Breakfast. But the fact that you've got a ticket stub and it's almost immaculate.
Yeah.
It's in really good condition. Why is this bit so important?
Well, I'll share a secret. That's actually not mine.
Okay.
My mum and dad binned mine when I moved out. I had a box with all memorabilia in, and they binned it by accident. So I had to call my granddad.
So this is you.
That's my granddad's one. That, yeah. Obviously, I was there. I had the ticket, but yeah, that's my granddad's one. That.
Right. So actually, this has double importance.
Sentiment, meaning.
Yeah, and all of those things. What else was in the box?
Images from, I think in the same week, this always sticks with me as well. In the same week for me school football team, Cardinal, we played at Anfield. against Birkdale.
Yeah.
Do you remember Jack Rodwell?
Yeah.
So Jack Rodwell was playing for them. He was like their main man, and I scored a free kick as well. So I think it was like the Monday night. I think it was. We played in the cup final at Anfield. I'd scored, and then the Champions League was on the Wednesday night. So that's like the week of dream, scoring at Anfield,
not off.
and then going to Istanbul.
And then winning in those circumstances,
Definitely.
of course, as well. I don't want you to overthink this. Okay. Right, so the penalty shootout is one question, one answer, the first thing that comes into your head, right? However, I get to decide whether the ball goes in or not, based on how quickly you answer your question. And we give everybody the same set of questions, right? But we don't pre-prep you for them. Okay. So you're first. Okay, so first question, home or away?
Home.
Okay. Watching or playing?
Playing, definitely.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I've just stopped there. Right. Okay. That's really interesting. You said playing, and yet we talked a lot about you watching, but that's your dad, right?
Yeah, that is.
That's your dad. You just described your dad, right? That's your granddad, but you just described your dad.
Yeah. You know what? I think we're playing. Obviously, you feel like destiny's in your hands a little bit more. Yeah. You can control the outcome a little bit more. So yeah, I always thought about like going into like managing football teams and stuff like that, and I just don't like the idea of it because I feel like I'd want to be out there and being able to impact the outcome. So I think that's why playing anything means a little bit more than watching.
VAR or nah?
Oh, nah.
Nah. Best captain?
Stevie G.
International friendlies or pre-season friendlies?
Pre-season.
I know this one doesn't have to be football. One result you will never get over.
I mean, there's only one. Istanbul.
Right, you'll just never get over it.
No, it's the best cup final in history of football, isn't it? And that's not a biased Liverpool fan saying that. I think if you went and asked a lot of fans from all different teams, I think it'd be hard to look past.
Does that not make you a little sad? Do you know what I mean? What I mean by that is that because that's a joyous moment, right? I mean, most people who answer those questions think of something miserable. You're almost saying to me, doesn't matter how many times I go to a game again, I'll never experience your euphoria like that. Or do you think it's linked to your age?
There's two ways to look at it. You could say it was sad because I'm never going to get that feeling again.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, I'm one of very few people who got that feeling live, being at that stadium, you know.
Of course.
And I think
the chosen few.
Well, that's it. So I think that'd live with me for the rest of my life if I missed that game. So I'd be chasing that high of like, I want to try and experience in Istanbul. Now that I've experienced that, I've missed cup finals where I've missed out on ballots and tickets and stuff. And I think I'm just like, it is what it is. It's not going to be any Istanbul. So, you know, I'm very, very grateful that I got to experience that because I've got not one of my mates got to go.
I want to come back to one thing before we finish, and it occurred to me when you were talking about building your businesses, and there was a key word in there. Has it ever occurred to you that even though you left the building site, you've been building ever since?
No, not till you've just said that now.
And one of the things that you also said was about it was important to sort of maintain momentum and relevance and those sort of things. If you're running two brickies, right, which a labourer has to do, people don't realise how important the labourer is to the two bricklayers because you've got to keep them moving, and if you don't keep them moving, the work stops and the work dries up. I just wonder whether or not it had ever occurred to you, that grounding that you had, because you did it for quite a long time. You're 25 and you did it when you left school. So it's nearly, assuming that you left at 16, that's nearly 10 years, the first 10 years of your working life. So that's a really big grounding.
Yeah. Do you know what? No, I've never looked at it like that. How I've always looked at, obviously, my time on the building site was, as I said earlier, I've got so much respect for people who do it because it's not an easy job. In the middle of winter, getting up. So I'll never change anything. I'm so grateful I got to do that because it's made me the person I am today. And it's definitely made me hungry for success, and it's made me driven because I always refer to that, and I'm like, how lucky am I, and how grateful I am that I get to do my job now because I've done that. And I think if I never would have done that, there's probably days where I think I can't be bothered doing this.
Getting up in the dark,
freezing cold,
all weathers,
mud up to your knees, and
Rocky Balboa, right?
Exactly, yeah. So the fact that I've done that, like, I'm so happy. And loads of people say to me, you know, don't you wish you started your PT career earlier? And I'm like, not at all. Because even when I started my personal training career early on, other PTs were going, how are you all happy all the time? You've constantly got a smile on your face. And I'm like, this is the best thing ever. Like, they didn't know any difference because they went from like school or what, you know, that's all they knew. Where I was like, when you've been on a building site in the middle of winter, it's just night and day. This is just bread and butter, so easy. And I loved it because I was getting to help people as well. You know, obviously I was building houses, you know, doesn't compare to impacting people's lives.
Well, you've definitely impacted my life today. And as in gratitude of that, everybody who comes on the podcast, the Football for Breakfast podcast, becomes part of our community. So I would like you to take that trophy and read what it says on it.
Have a look. Football for Breakfast, good companion, 25-26.
So I would just like to say, Callum Webb, thank you for coming on Football for Breakfast and being a good companion.
Top man. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well done.
Callum Webb, the man who turned a serious knee injury into a business transforming lives across the world. Football for Breakfast is a production by The Good Companions, brought to you by OSS Security. We've got you covered at osssecurity.com.
Football for breakfast again today. Crack the world's problems, then win on our way. From the floodlights to the white line, turnstiles to